All in approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that item is approved. Thank you so much. And next we have one last discussion item. This is a response from staff to a direction to develop a proposal for a permanent workplace regulations partnership group. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Nuria Rivera Vandermeid. I am the Deputy City Coordinator, and thank you so much for the opportunity to come speak about the staff direction regarding a permanent workplace advisory committee. As you all are aware, on May 5th, 2016, City Council directed the City Coordinator, along with assistance from a multi-department work group, to develop recommendations for a permanent workplace regulations partnership group. We come forward now after discussions with a variety of staff to bring that. We wanted to first sort of set the tone and the background that we believe that the creation of a workplace advisory committee really responds and is in alignment with the city goals. We know that the city of Minneapolis seeks to ensure that the workplace environment is just and safe for all workers and business owners alike, and really strives to ensure that existing and future policies connected to the workplace are really informed by a multitude of experiences and reality. And so note that really we believe that this is in alignment with the city goals itself. In thinking about a proposed workplace advisory committee, we wanted to make sure that we had a scope that was pertinent to the work group and did not overlap. There are a lot of advisory boards and commissions in the city. Many of them deal with other issues related to business concerns, for example. So we wanted to make sure that this particular workplace advisory committee had the scope which allowed them to do work related to workplace initiatives particularly. We have been discussing in particular sick leave, as the city has passed a municipal sick leave policy. We are in the midst of studying minimum wage, and in the future, who knows what other issues relating to the workplace come about. So we really looked for a forum in which to discuss and engage a broader community of workers and business owners, particularly in light of the success that the Workplace Partnership Group really had in bringing multiple perspectives to inform our policy as we move forward. We believe that the three principal objectives should really be to discuss and advise on workplace policy initiatives, to assist and advise on outreach and community engagement around workplace initiatives, and to, as is anticipated in particularly the municipal sick leave policy, to monitor and evaluate the program implementation as it moves forward. We recommend that the Workplace Advisory Committee prepare a 2-year work plan to submit to City Council that specifically focuses on workplace issues, commencing with the implementation of the city's sick leave policy. This is huge work that the city has embarked on, and enabling us to see how that progress is moving forward is important. We think it should detail proposed activities with some expected outcome and results related to the 3 main objectives spoken about before, and that it should include the development of an annual report to be submitted to City Council so that you can see progress on the work as it moves forward. We also want to make sure that subsequent work plans include any analysis of that, so it's not just a report back, but really an analysis of what the outcomes were of that activity. We spoke with members of the city clerk's office. We spoke with members of NCR to figure out what an optimal number of membership looked like. So in consultation with both departments, we have landed on a number of 15 as an optimal number of workplace advisory committee members. We hope that they would represent a cross-section of the business and worker environment and stakeholders, and have put recommended thoughts on composition as follows. 2 representatives from business associations, 2 representatives from mid to large employer, 2 representatives small and independent owner reps, a representative for non-for-profit organizations, 5 representatives and employee representatives, with that really placing an emphasis, as we did with the Workplace Partnership Group, on low-wage employee representation, 2 representatives from organized labor, and then a park board representative. And the reason that came about, we've had a lot of conversations with the park board. They have expressed a tremendous interest in continuing to be involved in this work, as have many other folks and entities across the city. But in particular, the park board has some unique characteristics with the type of employees and staffing that they do, whether they're students or interns or seasonal. They have such a volume of unique employee representatives that we thought it would be an appropriate inclusion in the Workplace Advisory Committee. I should also note with the composition that what we were seeking is to really create a true cross-sector. What we found were that the business interests perhaps of large versus small employers varied differently, that the composition of non-for-profits brought a unique perspective as well. We wanted to make sure, and it's a recommendation that you'll see on this page right now, that we had a cross-section of both for employers and for employees of industry and occupational diversity as well. The interest of the healthcare group was maybe different than those that worked in the franchise industry and different than worked in the restaurant or were doing small businesses and so forth. So we wanted to make sure that we had space to include a variety of industry occupational diversity. We believe that all the members should be selected through an open appointment process, and while it is not here, we recommend a 3-year appointment, in particular because sick leave will now take a year in which to do some background work to develop those frequently asked questions, and it'll take a year to do the soft implementation. We thought this group should carry over and follow through with the initial implementation of a sick leave policy, and felt that 3 years was an appropriate time in terms of a term. We also suggest that in selecting members through the open appointment process, that efforts should be made to ensure the representation not only reflects the industry occupational diversity, as I mentioned, but also that ensures representation from geographic, economic, and cultural diversity as well as we move forward. Given the focus on workplace issues, and in particular the implementation of the municipal sick leave policy, we recommend that the Department of Civil Rights provide primary support to the Workplace Advisory Group, but fully expect assistance and support from other departments. We in the City Coordinator's Office remain committed to providing the support it needs. I know the City Attorney's Office feels the same way as this moves forward, but depending on which issue it involves workplace issues, there may be more involvement from CPED, for example, or from different entities around the city. So we thought the primary department being civil rights, with their ability to bring in departments as moved forward. I apologize. And with that, we forward our recommendations. Again, these are just our recommendations, and know that policymakers will make your determinations as you see fit moving forward.
Thank you very much. I had just a couple of questions, and I think I am anticipating we're just going to receive and file the recommendation today and then be able to kind of come back to move it forward. And can you just refresh me on, if we are establishing a new board or commission, what's the format it needs to be in? Is this an ordinance? Is this just a direction and then you create it? I honestly can't remember. So.
Chair Glidden, I believe it's an enabling resolution that comes forward.
Okay, and I'm seeing nods from our clerk and from Cam Gordon, who's touched that work a lot. So, okay, so we establish a resolution that would look more formal and probably have more of the details than were in this presentation. I think one of the things where I just had a few more questions on, it's not about the importance of including the park board. I understand that importance, and we have a very special relationship with the park board, and we want to make sure that we're including them in the ways that they want to be included, so that they're part of the process. But where we've had, and we have other boards and commissions where the park board has a special seat. I couldn't remember if there's any. Usually I thought, and I could have this wrong, that where you see the park board having seats, sometimes you also see some other public bodies too, or the city might have some seats. And just I'm thinking about kind of how the group interacts. And again, this is not about not wanting the park board on the group or whatever. I'm just trying to think of the ultimate structural recommendation and what will make sense so the group kind of operates properly. And I guess my other part to that question is a little bit more for the park board of whether they think they will be interested in this group participating beyond the issue of just refined of the sick leave ordinance.
Chair Glidden, I've been in communication with the park board, and they have expressed an interest in moving forward and continuing to be a participant, if so chosen, by the city council. So they would very much welcome a seat at the table. We also believe that because it will be staffed by city staffers, in particular Department of Civil Rights, but certainly others as see fit, that will enable, just like we do in other boards and commissions, that we will be able to provide the support to continue a structure and a flow of information as needed for all the members. We'll be able to support the activities of the work group.
Okay. Council President Johnson, I know you've probably been in touch with the park.
Well, I just, know that, I mean, when we talk about our relationship with them, we share a taxing relationship, a budget relationship. And, I know their interest in, because they have a lot of people that they hire interim, summers, that kind of thing. Some of these issues that are coming forward actually have really serious cost implications for them that again, we share a budget with, we share a taxing authority with. So I think our relationship with them is unique in particular this employment area. Also, I mean, we do their human resources work. So I think having them be a full partner in this partnership makes a lot of sense.
Councilmember Gordon.
I appreciate this framework that's provided. I think it's something that we should do. I understand there's a lot of interest from some of the people who were part of the task force and workplace partnership already. I think we should maybe receive and file, but we could also direct somebody to start working on a resolution, or I'm happy to start working on drafting a resolution with other of my colleagues up here so that we could move forward with this idea.
Great. I'm not seeing other questions, and I think that's a great suggestion that we maybe add that to the receive and file and I think that can just be a direction to staff led by the coordinator's office to start the work of drafting a resolution. And Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to briefly note that we've had this discussion about agency and staff representation on other boards and commissions, and I think there's a difference. Actually, sometimes staff are quote unquote voting members, and sometimes they're there in a staff role. And sometimes, another agency like the park board would appoint a citizen representation to represent their position versus having a staff person there. So I do think there's a lot of questions about agency representation for maybe not just the park board, as Councilmember Glidden noted, but for the city itself or for other agencies as well. So I'm sure those details will be worked out.
And thanks for pointing that out, Councilmember Bender. And that was a little bit of where I was going, just with how this will look and feel. Again, it's not about the importance of the park board being fully vested in a participant in the work, but and I'm not seeing other. I don't think Councilor Gordon, that's old, right?
Yes, I just had one more.
You had one more,
especially
okay.
Since we're spending time talking about the park board. I know that when we've started other groups and entities, we've also found it advantageous to reach out to the school district, and the school district certainly employs a lot of people and are very involved. So just a thought to think about that as we're shaping this, and if the parks are included. I know that the parks are seen differently because they're more operating under the general enterprise, and the school board's more independent. But it's a thought.
Okay. Thank you for putting that out there. So I think it is fine, though, if we go ahead and I will move that we both receive and file and direct our city coordinator's office to lead efforts with other staff to draft a resolution that can come back to us where we can debate what might be some final composition, but that the resolution, at least now, will follow the outline that you've presented to us. Okay?
Chair Glidden, I don't know what the appropriate time is, but I also wanted to just note that Director Corbel is here, and she had a brief update on engagement. There's a lot of folks that are calling the city saying, what are the next steps? And if there's an
Yes.
opportunity.
So I think
to do
that's
that.
great. Let us vote on the item that was just before us, and then I think that would be wonderful to have an update from Director Corbel. So on the motion that I just stated, all in approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed. And Director Corbel, we would love to hear from you. And I'll just echo what you may have been hearing from others, that I was just at a small business association meeting yesterday, and I know folks are looking for what is at least a good outline of what's happened and what's our timeline. Those are probably the key things I'm getting, at least personally, I'm getting asked, as well as getting more individualized questions and comments from employers.
Sure. Well, good morning, Council President and Council Vice President and committee members. I'm Velma Corbet. I'm the Director in the Minneapolis Department of Civil Rights. I know that we have an official report back to the council later this fall. And we also have a couple of staff directions that we are to come back to the council with recommendations by August 17th. So this is sort of off the schedule, but I thought it would be good since folks might not have seen the same kind of flurry of activity related to the implementation of the Safe and Sick Time Ordinance as we were seeing a couple of weeks ago. But rest assured, there is still quite a bit of work ongoing. There's a staff implementation team. That's just kind of what we're calling ourselves. We had our first meeting on June 10th, and the majority of the members were those departments that are called out in the staff direction. We met for the express purpose of looking at those staff directions and setting some priorities, and also identifying staff by name and function who would be accountable for carrying out those staff directions. And so the coordinator's office, CPED, Civil Rights, Intergovernment Relations, Communications, the City Attorney's Office, and Neighborhood and Community Relations are all part of that team. We've also brought in 311 to help with some of the initial intake of questions that we're starting to get from people around the city. We know that there are some very immediate needs, particularly around communications and tools to be able to communicate with people about what's in this ordinance, who's covered, when it takes effect, et cetera. So we have the Communications Department, as well as the Neighborhood Community Relations Department and the Civil Rights Department, met just yesterday to talk about putting together some early communications pieces. Initially, we were talking about a one-pager, and I don't know what the measurements on that one-pager will be at this point, but just to put some very basic information together that is simple, easy to understand, very high level, but also something that's easily translatable to for employers or for employees who have a limited English proficiency. That draft will be out of the communications department within the next couple of days, because we're working very quickly to have something ready by the end of the week. I know that there are council members who are meeting with people as we speak, and we want to make sure to have information for them as quickly as we can. So we're working on that this week. The other thing that we have been working on, again, I mentioned 311. We are going to be sitting down with 311 and communications and neighborhood community relations to put together a script and training. So as calls come into 311, people at 311 know what to do with that. They know who to direct it to. If there's limited English proficiency, that inquiry will go to the right place, and we can get a pretty quick response back to the person asking the question. We are also working with Neighborhood Community Relations to do some very specific and intentional collection of resources around this culturally specific and culturally competent outreach and technical assistance. That's in one of the staff direction. I think that was primarily authored by Councilmember Warsami and others, but we know that that's an immediate need as well. So there are many different departments working on these staff directions and other items related to the immediate need we have to get information out to the residents and workers. The first, again, is that sort of one pager that has some standard information on training and familiarity with the 311 folks. We also have created an email address and a website that we're going to be driving people to So it really is about communication at this point.
Thank you very much for that update. Any immediate questions for Director Corbett? I'm not seeing any, so thank you very much for that verbal update. And so with that, I think we can we have completed with our agenda, and we can turn to reports of committees with Community Development and Regulatory Services. First with Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. There are 14 items we're bringing forward for approval on Friday. Item number 1 is a business license for La Fresca with operating conditions. Item 2 are the regular liquor business and gambling license applications. Item 3 is a operating conditions for the venue. Item 4 is an MOU with the Public Housing Authority to analyze opportunities for potential coordination with inspections. I know a number of people are following that. Item 5 is granting exclusive development rights to Pinnacle Management for a project at Bryant and West Broadway. Item number 6 is the final approval of the bond issuance for Hawthorne Eco Village. Item 7 is approving grant awards from Hennepin County through their Affordable Housing Incentive Fund. Item 8 is one of the last remaining pipeline projects for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. This is for a project at Prospect North. Item 9 are amendments to the Humboldt Greenway redevelopment contract. 10 is a contract with Homeline for legal advice to Minneapolis renters. 11 is some changes in our home ownership opportunity program. And 12 is NSP fund guidelines. Those are the items, 1 through 12.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Health, Environment, and Community Engagement with Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you, Vice President. The Health, Environment, and Community Engagement Committee is bringing forward 6 items for consideration to the Council. The first is directing staff to draft and submit written comments in support of the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency's notice of intent to revoke without reissuance the air quality permit for Northern Metals Recycling. I believe this also went to the IGR Committee. Second item is authorizing submittal of an application for the U.S. Department of Energy's cities leading a grant application for $500,000. The third item is accepting a single bid for medication device products. The fourth is accepting a grant from the New Venture Fund to achieve Bright City status. The fifth item is authorizing an amendment to a contract by increasing the contract by $20,000 for lead testing services. And the last item is amending a city council action where it was a staff direction regarding community solar gardens, directing staff to issue an RFP for community solar garden services that will have workplace participation for Minneapolis residents and compliance with the small and underutilized business program included in its goals, as well as potential ownership by the city of Minneapolis for the renewable energy credits. Happy to take any questions on any of those items.
All right, I am not seeing any questions. The next committee is I have on my list is intergovernmental relations, but I actually don't think we have an agenda item there, right? So I was just double checking. The next one is public safety, civil rights, and emergency management with that vice chair, Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice President. The Public Safety and Civil Rights Emergency Management Committee is bringing forward 4 items for consideration. The first is a contract amendment with Hennepin Health Services for provision of an attending medical director. The second item is authorizing a contract with Minneapolis Public Housing Authority for investigating fraud. The third item is authorizing a revenue agreement with SMG. I don't recall what that stands for, but for the police department to provide law enforcement services in the neighborhoods adjacent to U.S. Bank Stadium. And the fourth item is authorizing an increase to a contract with Minneapolis Public Schools for a not to exceed total of over $3 million and extension through June 30th, 2017 for the Minneapolis police officers to serve as school resource officers in city high schools, middle schools, and other selected schools. I can take questions on all of those, and I'll also note that we also got a report on the police body camera updated policy, but there's no action necessary coming forward to the council on that, but I believe the policy is, the new draft is online.
All right. Next, we have Transportation and Public Works. And I'll note Councilmember Reich was at this meeting but had to attend his tab assignment for the Metropolitan Council. And Vice Chair of that committee, Councilmember Palmasan, will give the report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's 19 items for council approval this Friday. The first is a land sale and reconveyance to the state of Minnesota at 2900 Grand Avenue South. The second is the Stormwater Management Program and Annual Report. The third is an agreement with MnDOT for landscaping improvements in Triangle Park. That's the 7th Ward downtown here by 10th Street and 35W. The fourth is another agreement with MnDOT for landscaping improvements on the east side sound wall in Ward 8 of 35W. Fifth is another agreement with MnDOT for cost participation in public infrastructure design for the I-35W and Lake Street Transit Access Project that touches Wards 6, 8, 9, and 10. Item number 6 is 4th Street Southeast Reconstruction Project. 7 is West 29th Street Reconstruction Project Phase 1, the designation of the project. Item number 8 is 3rd Avenue South parking restrictions. Number 9 is a special boulevard permit for Sisyphus Brewery. Number 10 is Bassett Creek Watershed Management Commission appointments. Item number 11 is Hennepin Avenue Reconstruction Project concept approval. Item number 12 is the Southwest LRT final environmental impact statement. Then forwarded to Ways and Means were agreements with MnDOT for Central Avenue and University Avenue traffic signal and pedestrian ramp projects. A contract amendment with Waste Management for transfer station operations. Item number 15 authorizes the submission for federal transportation funds through Met Council's 2016 program. Item number 16 is the Downtown Pedestrian Improvement Project, our intent of payment. Item number 17 is Bridge 9 Pier 3 Repair Project. That's the University of Minnesota over the Mississippi River between the East and West Bank. The last two are bids for 7th Street reconstruction and West 54th Street reconstruction projects. I also would like to acknowledge that 2 things that were received and filed by the committee but don't come forward to council include the Pedestrian Advisory Committee and Bicycle Advisory Committee annual reports and the Street Cafe Pilot Program presentation that will supplement our current Parklet program. That's it.
All right. Thank you very much. Next, we have the Ways and Means report with Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are 20 items on the Ways and Means report for consideration on Friday. First is a grant, acceptance of a grant from Minneapolis Auto Club Foundation. We also have a contract amendment with Thomson Reuters Westlaw Online Legal Research. There are 3 legal settlements, all workers' compensation claims. Also an establishment of an administrative hearing officer and enforcement services panel. From the city coordinator's office, we have several items, including a acceptance of a Minneapolis One Read grant funds from the Minneapolis Foundation for the City of Minneapolis Read program. A contract with Patrick Bourne and Patricia Helen for professional planning and coordination services. We have the Minnesota Historical Society certified local government grant acceptance. We also have a contract with RSP Architects for architectural and engineering design services, settlement agreement with Beacon Sales Acquisition for business relocation, a contract with Hagen Christensen McWillan Architects for architectural and engineering design services for the East Side Storage Maintenance Facility, a contract amendment with the state of Minnesota for Minneapolis Impound Lot. There are several items that are related contracts, Information Technology Department items, including geographical information system vendors for support and consulting services, contract amendment with Cloud Sherpas for ServiceNow application, contract amendment with LinkedIn Corporation for recruiting tool usage, contract with the state of Minnesota for SHI International for use of Microsoft products, contract with Knowledge Lake for enterprise content management system, and an amendment with Westlaw Publishing Corporation contract for online research services and database access, And finally, an item, it's the prevailing wage requirements for public improvement contracts ordinance, and that has been introduced at this council, went back to committee for review and some changes, and is ready for consideration on Friday. Any questions on those items? Be happy to answer.
All right. And finally, we have the zoning and planning report with Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 6 items from Zoning and Planning. Item number 1 is denying an appeal for a certificate of appropriateness at 721 North First Street. And there are some conditions on that approval. We adopted some and changed some others. Item number 2 is granting an appeal for a certificate of appropriateness at 200 Central Avenue Southeast. Item number 3 is denying an appeal for the same project at 200 Central Avenue Southeast. I will note that items 1, 2, and 3 are all just regarding the Heritage Preservation Commission applications. These projects will come back through for their land use applications in the future. Item number 4 was denying an appeal for a 1-foot side yard setback variance for a 4-unit building at 3621 Bryant Avenue South. Item number 5 was denying an application for a rezoning at 3219 Portland Avenue. And item number 6 was receiving and filing a draft letter in response to the Mississippi River Corridor critical area rules and directing staff to continue to work with the DNR on this process. Happy to answer any questions.
All right. I'm not seeing any. I will just, I'm sorry, Councilmember Frye.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commenting briefly on items number 1 and 2. If my colleagues have any questions about either of them, please just let me know. It's regarding the 2 HPC decisions regarding a development in North Loop, as well as development just across the Central Avenue Bridge. Additionally, I will likely be coming forward with a staff direction relating somewhat to item number 2 on the continued acknowledgement of the historic district. If anybody has any questions, I'm certainly willing to talk about it.
All right. And I have one announcement. Council President Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On our agenda, it's noted that we have a closed, I think it is, closed.
I think it's not noted, but we need that announcement.
Okay. So, and then it's a closed session for a lawsuit settlement, but we're also going to have a security briefing.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that announcement. And I believe with that, we have concluded with our agenda and we are adjourned. Thank you.
So, a few questions about items
What's that?
number 1 and 2.